Welcome to Detachment 128's podcast. This is a series of recordings that we are doing this semester where we interview cadets, special guests, and we'd like to go down and understand ROTC at a very deep level. There's a lot that can be easily missed from a surface level overview of ROTC, and our goal is to make this a little bit more personable with this podcast. This will be an open discussion, so feel free to leave down the phone, open up a new tab and listen. You won't be missing anything from viewing the video. My name is Cadet Sproul, and today we're honored to have Colonel John Boulet on with us today. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Outstanding. How are you?
Great.
Sir, I wanted to start off this podcast just by getting a little bit of an understanding of what your background is with the Air Force, who you are, and then what your life has looked like in the Air Force thus far.
Okay. So to start, grew up in Delaware. My dad actually moved to Delaware in 1985 to be the commander of Det 128. So
What?
Yeah. So that was his last assignment in the active duty Air Force, and different building, much different time, but that's how we came to Delaware. I commissioned through the Air Force Academy, and at the time there was a massive pilot shortage. So in the 90s, early 90s, there would have been the worst year it hit where there were 100 pilot slots for given out to every ROTC unit in the country to be shared by. So I mean, it was really low.
Wow.
And so at that point, the same is true. Usually the academy mirrors whatever ROTC's getting. It's the 50-50 split. And so the notion was, my dad said, if you want one of those spots, you probably need to go to the academy. And so that sort of cemented it for me. So that's where I got my commission. My goal since fifth grade was to fly the A-10. So worked hard and I got that opportunity. Flew the A-10 for a little while in Alaska. And then I became a strange creature. So I ended up selecting my next assignment was an active duty A-10 pilot embedded in a guard unit. And I ended up transferring to Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. I flew there, which is interesting because my very first drill, now I was active duty, so I was a full timer, but the very first drill weekend was the week after 9/11. So pretty much almost my entire career has been shaped by 9/11. So I've been to Afghanistan in the A-10, Iraq twice flying. I've been to East Africa in a non-flying sort of larger organizational capacity. So I've seen an awful lot of desert. And after flying the A-10, I left Willow Grove, went down to Georgia. I was an instructor in what's called IFF, which for any of you guys who go to pilot training, it'll be your worst 6 weeks. IFF's a difficult program. And then I got out of the active duty and transitioned into the Guard, which is where I remain in the Guard to this day. So it's my 23rd year in the military, and I now serve in what is called an Air Operations Center. So I'm a Guard augmentee to the Air Operations Center weapon system, which is the place where sort of the air battle is, the plan is executed. Right? Obviously, the pilots execute the mission, but the plan is executed in the Air Operations Center. And I'm sort of, if you've ever thought of those rooms with a bunch of computers and big screens, you see in the movies,
Right.
I'm one of those guys. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, sir, I guess another question, you mentioned you're in for 23 years. Why are you still in the Air Force? Why hasn't that Um, I guess I'm sure the retirement has looked attractive, but why haven't you pulled the trigger yet?
That's a great question. I'm kind of a red meat patriot in the sense of I think it's a valuable facet of life to serve. I maybe you can understand. I gain in my life. I gain by serving. Um, so that's part of the reason. A little more closely, my civilian job. I'm a minister, and there's been times where in early getting started in ministry in the early days, the guard put food on my table, my medical benefits. And so I'm a loyal person by nature. So obviously I don't need that anymore, but I still feel very fondly connected to that relationship. And for me, I, as a pastor, it's a very welcome change of pace to step out. And I'm not trying to be a different person. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to like get away from my church fellowship. That's not the goal at all. But a
Sure.
chance to actually be like my church fellowship. It gives me a lot in common with them to know what it's like to go to a work where everybody doesn't think the way you think, that sort of thing. Does that help a little bit?
It does.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So every once in a while on our podcast, we like to throw a little, we throw a bone in there, something that's a little off kilter. Sir, I have a question for you. Which of the three phases of the Star Wars Skywalker saga, so that's the initial four, five, and six, one, two, and three, and then these new ones that came out, which phase has been your favorite? And then if you have a favorite among all of those, specifically one movie, which movie is that?
Yeah, this is easy. So first of all, 4, 5, and 6, hands down. Anything with Jar Jar Binks should be purged and completely purged from the historic record. And then I would say in the latest ones, I didn't even see the last one. My sons came home from the theater and said there was a stampede of animals. They stormed a spaceship with a stampede of animals, and that's all I needed to hear. Like I was like, the world of silly Marvel comics has invaded the sacred space of Star Wars. So 4, 5, and 6 to me are honest. I much prefer. I'm not a big fan of computer CGI. Uh, it's unconvincing to me. Something in my mind realizes I'm watching a cartoon. So those old ones just feel more real. But in those old ones, Empire Strikes Back is the premiere episode, and in Empire Strikes Back, the Battle of Hoth is the absolute apex of Star Wars.
That's a very unique answer. I did
Yeah.
not expect that at all.
Which, if you're an A10 driver, that right there, when you're a boy watching that in the theater, and you want to do that, and you find the A10 is the next closest thing. So,
Why the A10 and not any other airframe?
well, flying low and supporting the guys on the ground, big guns. They had those big cannons on the side. Anyway, so all of that. I'm just talking about those snow speeders
Gotcha.
that so you could have known the answer just by looking at my profile of exactly what scene would matter. Yeah.
That's a very unique answer. I know I interviewed our colonel of our detachment for our first podcast, and he picked out The Mandalorian as
Huh.
his favorite series. Have you been watching that?
I have, and I actually would say Mandalorian harkens back to 4, 5, and 6.
It does.
Yeah, and so my family enjoys Mandalorian in the same lane of 4, 5, and 6. Yeah,
I am very impressed with how John Favreau's been putting that together. So,
there's hope yet. Yes.
well, sir, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Um, there are a lot of students who have joined ROTC mid, I guess, amongst their college career. Once they start to see people in uniform walking around on campus, they think, "Hey, what's that? I'd love to figure out how I can join the Air Force that way. There's other students who are getting a plethora of information while they're in high school, whether it's at junior year or senior year, where they can hear about all of these college opportunities. And I'm sure the Air Force is one of them. What would you say to a cadet who's looking at that pamphlet, or someone in college thinking about walking into the ROTC office, or just joining the Air Force in any other way?
It's a great question. I have different answers depending on who I'm talking to. So if it's somebody who's um, looking at the Air Force as maybe a means of paying for college, which I don't think is a dishonest capacity. I mean, so the military will get out of you what it put into you. So,
I
I
believe
would
that.
always discourage somebody who's merely making a financial transaction, because that's unwise, because the military is going to ask things of you that really you can't put a price tag on. But I'd say, assuming that someone's got a kind of a heart that can grapple with that idea of sacrifice and service. I tell my sons, because they're all of college age or approaching college age, that college education is not worth half what it costs. So, I mean, it is ridiculous what it costs today, and you're not getting very good return on your dollar. So when you find places like, potentially like ROTC that can offset some of that, and I'd say, and it's compatible with the rest of the way, your life is, I'd say, man, that's what a great opportunity. So to someone who's maybe in that category, uh, I might talk about them that way a little bit. In the land of somebody who's probably more drawn to the military already, and it's actually more of a military interest. Um, it's my experience, and I've had a lot of it, that the Air Force provides for um, the certain kinds of stabilities that are going to matter in your adult life, like ability to raise families, these sorts of things that maybe are a little harder to value in college. I mean, so I was like everybody else in my younger years. I wanted to fly the A-10, or if not, I wanted to be a SEAL. You know what I mean? It was these extreme lock and load Rambo sort of dreams,
Sure.
and that's, I don't have a critique for that. That's what a 21-year-old young man is supposed to. That's the way they're supposed to be. But you're not going to be 21 the rest of your life, and things are going to settle down, and then the things that start to have more enduring value for the rest of your life. I'd say the Air Force allows a little bit more of a home and all that. And so I usually try to encourage folks that way with that in mind. But there's I would say, if you want to run with a rifle, maybe the Air Force is probably not the, if someone says, I'm going to go be a combat rescue officer, I say, well, good luck with that, because you're only going to compete against 1,000 people to do that, as opposed to other services that have that where something like that's a little more rudimentary. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the Air Force, obviously, but I'm always, you want to find something that fits. You're gonna Everyone's gonna be better served by that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question there, Jacob, but
No, I think you did. I think, yeah, mentioning how if you are in college, you're just looking for, like you said, a transactional relationship, just getting some money out of that relationship. The Air Force, you said it definitely will get what it can out of you, and I think that's a great point, because I don't think a lot of students looking at the military see exactly what can come out of it after 10, 20, 23 years. There's a lot that you'll walk out with. Um, and like you said, eventually you'll settle down, you might have a family, and if you chase after something pretty ambitious, that mindset might change a little bit once you're actually in
yeah.
there. So
Mhm.
that's a great answer. Well, sir, I don't really have any other questions for you. I do appreciate you giving your time this morning to talk. Um, this is definitely something that I think a lot of our cadets in our detachment, I know other detachments most definitely will want to watch and listen because there are a lot of people who are, I believe, chasing after your career. So I
Mm.
appreciate you giving us the time to peek into your life a little bit. Um, and yeah, have a great rest of your morning.
Hey, thanks very much. Thanks for having me.